my name is Droolbatz. It's so nice to see you. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2018 horror movie He's Out There. I'm going to be reviewing it based on its premise, its production value and artistic choices, and finally how it compares or contrasts to other films of the genre. I hope you enjoy. A small family is getting ready to head up to a house on a lake for their vacation. They've spent some summers there before, so they're kind of familiar with the way. The father of the family unfortunately realizes he has to stay behind and do something. I don't know if it's work or what, so he'll be a few hours behind the mom and the two daughters. While they're getting up there, they find that the gate that they normally go through is kind of messed up, like the lock is a little bit tricky, and one of the local guys who lives there year-round is telling them how you have to be careful and not get lost in the woods, and how there was a family that lived there before and their son got lost in the woods and was never found, so just be careful. The mom, of course, is glad because that's good to know, and the daughters, I don't know how old they are, they're kind of on the young side. They love to frolic and play in the woods, and you know, she doesn't want them to get in trouble out there. All seems to be well until that night. While the wife is waiting for her husband to show up, one of her daughters wakes her up and says there's something wrong with Maddie, and the little daughter, Maddie, who's the youngest, is vomiting and seems to be pretty sick. She coughs up a piece of paper that says hello on it. What? It turns out the girls, when they were out playing in the yard earlier while the mom was getting unpacked, found a tea party in the woods complete with cupcakes. The older sister didn't eat hers, so the mom finds it and opens it, and there's a piece of paper that says goodbye inside. Somebody is watching their house and watching their family. What could possibly be going on? One of the most immediately distinguishing features of this movie is its cool, contrast-heavy color scheme. At times, it made the movie look almost like an illustration in a storybook. Most of the colors that were not very bright, like, you know, a bright red or something, kind of faded into almost a grayish tone throughout the movie, although of course you could tell that there were colors. The filter applied to this movie was pretty heavy. During the daylight scenes, it was kind of annoying. It made it look like some of those older TV shows that were on when I was a teen, that kind of went crazy with the color filters. But during the nighttime scenes, they made the action pop, so you weren't questioning what was happening. Even if, you know, a dark figure was against a dark background, you could see what was happening. So I thought it was an interesting choice that for the most part worked to add to the mood rather than just looking silly. Everything in this movie felt very three-dimensional. We got a really good feeling of the moody and immersive woods. We got a firm layout of the house on the lake that they were staying at. Everything about this movie was very well established so that we weren't left with any confusion during the editing process. Everything in the story had its place, and everything contributed to what we were seeing on the screen. Also impressive was this movie's score. Very orchestral and cinematic. It built even the small moments at the beginning of the movie up so that you could tell something was coming. Everything was very foreboding and the tension was very high. It was also just a very beautiful score. Definitely something you could put on in the background while you're doing things. It was very traditional, but it still stood out as very beautiful despite being in a horror movie. I think it really added to kind of the depth that this movie presented its characters and its world in, and I do think that without the music, the movie itself would have come across quite differently. The acting in this movie was superb, especially regarding the young girls. I think it can be very hard to get child actors to seem very convincing, which isn't necessarily their fault, but it's very hard to write a script for children and have it come across not cheesy and not feeling so contrived, and these little girl actors did a really great job. It felt very natural, and they weren't annoying characters either. I thought they did a good job of showing what it would be like to be a kid in that kind of a scenario. The actress who plays the mother as well was very good. She really carried the movie. I think she gave a great performance that it wasn't basic, but it was traditional. At 89 minutes long, this movie is a really easy length to watch, and it's got really great pacing. The The mystery builds slowly but steadily. There's no dead space in the movie. Everything is there specifically to either build the world or the experience or the characters or the plot. Nothing is there just to fill time. Altogether, this movie had really high production value and was a treat to watch. Now I'm going to be discussing how this movie stands apart from or blends into other films of the genre. I will be spoiling this movie, so if you don't want any spoilers, please take this as your cue to leave now. It was lovely having you, and thank you to those who are sticking around. Obviously, the mom is shocked and upset that someone would try to poison her kids. She tries to get them away, but it becomes pretty apparent that somebody is currently spying on them and is plotting something. This doll that her daughters have is moved around the house, so they realize somebody's in the house with them. The car is sabotaged, so they can't drive it. It seems they'll be trapped in the house, and she's waiting and hoping her husband will come and can help them. But the husband, being a few hours later and struggling with the gate, falls into the snares of the villain, and he's gone. To her utter horror, she discovers her husband is dead, and the mom is like, okay, I'm gonna have to take charge. The villain reveals himself and attacks the neighbor guy who comes to check on them. He then attacks the mom, dragging her outside when she gets near the door, and then he comes after the kids. He reveals himself to be the guy who was the little kid who went missing, who used to live there before. He says, I've watched you guys for a long time. I used to live in this house. He's got a creepy mask on, so they don't know what he looks like. And he said that somebody left that book there for him when he was a kid, and he wrestled with it, trying to understand this book's abstract meaning. And now he's like, I've realized there is no meaning, blah. For whatever reason, decides that he needs to build a creepy family in the woods out of like wood and things, and kind of builds like this weird scarecrow family, but he wants to like use body parts from the actual family and like basically make zombie scarecrow looking things. It's pretty weird. He kidnaps the girls, and you think the mom is dead, but it turns out she survived a little bit, and she's able to attack him with this axe that he was using on them, and she gets the girls in the car and drives away. However, when she looks back as they're peeling away, covered in blood and crying and stuff, they notice that the body that was there just a few minutes ago is gone. So as an audience member, you are left with a billion questions. This movie will be very familiar to a lot of people. It's kind of a classic scenario. A family alone in the wilderness in an environment they're not familiar with is being watched, and that person who is watching them tries to make contact. They're very freaked out. There's an axe. I mean, very classic stuff. This movie really didn't bring anything new to the table in that respect. You know, the classic, the power goes out move, the classic dude in a creepy mask, finding weird things in the wood. Everything you've seen here, you've seen before. The way that this movie kind of changed it was everything it did was just really solid. The pacing was so solid, really good. There was no dead space in this movie, and I normally don't love movies like this, but I found this one very compelling, and I really enjoyed it because it just clipped right along, and the music score was very enveloping too. The actors really did a stellar job. If you like looking at pretty people, the mom is very beautiful. The husband, I mean, he's cute. I think he was in Grey's Anatomy. I'm sad that I know that. I mean, you've seen these people before. And the little kids too. I think including young children in a movie can be a liability sometimes, but I was really blown away by how good the acting was with these little girls. Everything they did felt very authentic. It didn't feel extremely rehearsed. They had natural chemistry, and I don't know, I was just really impressed just because little kids are kind of hard to have in a movie. Some people were complaining, why are the little kids even there? They don't really do anything till the end. Normally, I think I would agree with that. However, in this case, the girls were kind of the ones who discovered this villainous dude by finding his cupcake party in the woods. They were kind of instrumental in giving the mom a motive, I think, because if you're just watching a movie where it's just some random lady by herself trying to survive a dude with an axe. It's pretty boring, I think. In this one, the whole like the mother being protective, because she had the little girls with her, she wasn't, you know, able to really freak out when she found her husband's body and stuff. She really had to kind of keep it together, and I think that took away a level of cheesiness that's often present in movies like these, because she wasn't screaming incessantly because she was trying to keep it together. So I think the girls were good as kind of plot points, if that makes sense. Sometimes I find little kid characters really annoying, especially if you're watching like a cheap Lifetime movie. Like the kid actors in those are so terrible, but it's not their fault, but they're bad. However, in this movie, they really were good actors. I believe they were also sisters in real life, so that might be why they had such good chemistry. Either way, I was really impressed by that. This movie really didn't bring anything new to the table. It's just that what it did bring was very solid. I think most people who will watch this movie will kind of view it as an homage to older movies that are very similar. I mean, it's so formulaic. Where this movie stumbles a little, in my opinion, is the really vague ending and the vague motives. The movie starts out with one of the girls reading, like her voiceover, reading this mysterious book about this mouse and this crow, and you think, oh, this is obviously some kind of metaphor for something, and throughout the movie, they're trying to figure out what the metaphor is for. They never actually discover it. The creepy guy who shows up and is like, I didn't understand this book either, lol. He doesn't really have clear motives either. He acts like perhaps the book inspired him, but then he's like, but it didn't inspire me because I don't know what it means, so I'm just doing whatever I want. The motivations were so vague, and that was really not very satisfying. I normally don't like really vague endings. In this case, I thought they were okay, just because the rest of the movie was solid, but the rest of the movie was so good, I was just really disappointed by how it ended. I wouldn't have even minded the whole, like, where did his body go mystery if they had at least explained a little bit his motivations. Like, you know, even if he didn't know where the book came from, maybe if he was like, well, as a kid I puzzled over this and it drove me crazy, so I just left my family to figure it out, and that's why he's being weird or something. But I mean, even it just wasn't satisfying. Basically, if this movie had had a little bit more of a solid ending, I think it would have been a little bit more enjoyable. I've noticed that movies, especially in 2017, 2018, they tend to have kind of unresolved endings because they want the audience to question it. They want the audience to try to Google it and figure out what happened to get more hype for the movie. So in that way, this kind of dated the film and made it feel like this really is a modern movie. I know that older movies do that, but just the way it had like 3 or 4 different things that were super not wrapped up at all made it really feel like, okay, this is a 2018 movie. That's my personal opinion. But anyway, altogether, this movie didn't bring anything new to the table, but what it offered was, for the most part, very solid. If I had to rate this movie, I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars. The vague ending was just so dissatisfying. It felt really lazy, frankly. But were it not for that, I would rate it much higher. The experience of watching this movie was so exciting. The characters were great. The cinematography was great. I loved the music. It was just so solid. But then the ending just kind of chucks it all out the window. I feel like nowadays movies that end with this kind of vague, you know, you have to look it up to see other people's interpretations because we're not going to say anything, kind of an ending, is very common. And I feel like it's laziness disguised as intentionality. Like they're like, oh, we want you to feel confused. Like, we chose that. But really, I think it's just kind of lazy. I don't know, though. What do you guys think? Let me know if you have any thoughts. I'd love to hear them all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this review was helpful to you and enjoyable to you. And I hope that you will like this video if you liked it. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I make horror movie reviews on this channel. So if you like movie reviews, or if you like me, maybe consider subscribing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye!